Hello friends, welcome to LeggLife, and it has begun. We are in the summer tourist season here in Alaska.
Yep.
There are tour buses on the road, the train is going, cruise ships have arrived in our home state.
Yep.
Next week we are going on our third Alaska cruise.
Yes.
And so we thought that we would actually answer a bunch of your questions about Alaska travel, cruising in Alaska.
Yeah.
So over on Instagram we said, hit us with your best shot. Give us all of your questions. And you guys, you actually gave us way more questions than we could possibly answer.
Yep.
in this video. But we're going to try to get through as many of them as possible as we talk all about Alaska 2024 travel and cruising.
Before we jump into your questions, we did want to kind of set the tone a little bit for kind of what travel in 2024 will look like.
So it doesn't matter if you're coming to Alaska via cruise ship, as an independent traveler, via RV. There are a couple things I think you need to know this year before you get here to our home state. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of you. This is going to be, all reports are that this will be the biggest tourism year Alaska's ever had.
Yeah.
Last year was big. This year, everything looks like it's going to be bigger.
Yeah.
And so I would just say one of the things to pack maybe is a little bit of patience.
A lot of bit of patience.
A lot of bit of patience, because there's probably going to be people almost everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Now, that is not a bad thing, and don't let that deter you.
Right.
Alaska is huge.
Right.
And for the most part, even, I mean, there are some exceptions. There are some places that really do get packed with people. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, in Alaska, you can always find, like, solitude.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I love about it.
Yeah.
But if you're coming here this year, just know that if you're coming on a cruise ship, a lot of excursions may already be sold out. In fact, even on our cruise next week,
Yep.
we've noticed that a lot of them sold out very, very early.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean, we're going to talk about it in this video, just because an excursion is sold out doesn't mean that there's nothing to do in a certain port town.
Correct.
Because y'all, we're going to give you, as Alaskans who travel a lot in our state, we're going to give you some of our pro tips.
The insider info.
Ooh, the insider info. So here's what we're going to do, is I have them all pulled up on my phone, all of your questions. Like I said, there's no way we could get through all of these.
This would be a really, really, really long video.
But I do want to touch on just a few of them. You ready?
Yep.
So the first question that we actually got, question numero uno, looks like it's from Andy. Andy said, top Anchorage restaurants. Now, so be thinking about that. Get the wheels turning. Mm-hmm. I have not told Sherri almost any of these questions.
You're right. You touched on a couple of them as they first started to come in, and then
so this will be interesting.
I haven't read any more of them.
Now, one of the things that we're going to do a little bit later on is we're actually going to make an Anchorage-specific video. Mm-hmm. Like things to do if you're visiting Anchorage, where to eat if you're visiting Anchorage, all of that kind of stuff. But let's just give a couple of our top Anchorage restaurants for tourists.
Okay. I mean, the top of every list is Moose's Tooth.
So Moose's Tooth,
and it's there for a reason, honestly.
Yeah, Moose's Tooth is our famous pizza place. Mm-hmm. Very unique specialty pizzas. It's not the place you go and get like a cheese pizza or a pepperoni pizza.
Correct.
You get pizzas with apricots, or pizzas with reindeer sausage, or pizzas with like that kind of stuff.
Right. Delish.
They brew their own beer. Mm-hmm. It is probably without question the most popular restaurant in Anchorage. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those that I would say, if you love pizza, if you love beer, it's worth checking out.
Yep. Be prepared for a wait.
Be prepared for a wait. We like it. We love it, I'd even say. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the wait deters us from going.
Because we do live here.
Because we do live here. So you said Moose's Tooth.
Yep.
I'm going to say 49th State Brewing Company.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going to say
up there for me too.
The reason I'm going to say 49th State is there are a couple dishes that to me are just Alaska. I think you can get like an elk burger there.
I think so.
But the thing that we always get, it's the Krabby Patty grilled cheese. It is.
I think it's called a king crabby.
Whatever it's called, it's got a whole bunch of freaking crab on it,
and it's a whole bunch of crab.
Delicious.
To call it a grilled cheese is a little bit misleading.
It should be called a crab sandwich. Oh, by the way, we also added some cheese.
And grilled it. Right.
It's so good.
There's a ton of crab on it, and it's really good.
A couple other just like honorable mentions I'm going to throw out there. Yeti dogs. Reindeer hot dogs. You know, if you go to Chicago, you get a Chicago dog. You go to New York, you get like a dirty water dog. Here, you get a reindeer hot dog.
Get a reindeer hot dog from Yeti Dogs because they're our favorite.
There are lots of vendors downtown, and you can get reindeer dogs from any of them.
Yep, but if you follow Yeti Dogs on Instagram, they always post where they're at.
They're our favorite. They're the most amazing people.
Yep.
So that one is always good. If you're looking for maybe a little bit nicer of a dinner in Anchorage, Simon's? Simon and Seaforth's is a restaurant downtown. I do think it's like a smaller chain, so it's not specific to Anchorage. It's right on the water, has a beautiful view.
Yep.
They're
really good seafood if you like it, but non-seafood if you don't like seafood.
The crab artichoke dip is really good. They also have wonderful cocktails.
Yes, they
Okay,
do.
so is that at least a good overview?
I would say one more, Serrano's.
Interesting.
I would put Serrano's on the list.
It's a Mexican restaurant. That's a bold move, Sherry. It's a bold move.
I know, it's probably my favorite Mexican restaurant in town. My sister always makes sure she goes. Even when she was just up here for a couple of days, she snuck a little quick trip to Serrano's.
There we go. So, more coming in an Anchorage-specific video.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to move on. Oh, this is sweet. No question, but thank you. We feel much more prepared for our trip next month thanks to you.
Oh, yay.
That's awesome.
I'm glad.
That is why we share our experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one that I think we can answer quickly.
Okay.
Any recommendations outside of the buses from Whittier to Anchorage? So Whittier is where a lot of cruise ships dock.
Yep.
And a lot of people need to get from Whittier to Anchorage.
Yep.
Bus is one of the ways that we've done it.
Yes.
Always great.
Yes.
But it's not the only way.
The train.
I actually think the train is a better way.
I really like the train. I think that it's beautiful. It goes up. It kind of mostly follows the road, but it kind of goes up in the mountains and moves away from the road a little bit. So you get to see a little bit more mountains, wildlife.
Yeah, so the Alaska Railroad is who operates the train from Whittier to Anchorage. Princess Cruise Line does also operate the train. I think that's mostly, though, for Princess Cruise guests.
I think so.
I think they might do some independent travelers. I guess we should know this. But I will say the Alaska Railroad for sure does.
Yes, and it's beautiful.
That's actually what we would recommend. Do the railroad from Whittier to Anchorage.
Yep.
Because it really is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great experience.
This is something we got a lot of questions about. Someone said, I'm cruising in late July. What do I bring to wear? Now, it doesn't matter if you're cruising in May, like we are, June, July, August, September, October. Maybe you've already cruised in April.
We have one word for you.
What is that?
Layers.
Layers.
Bring layers.
Here's how I think you should pack. Because here's the problem with summer in Alaska. It could be high 30s and 40s. Mm-hmm. It could be 90. You just don't know.
Correct.
And so the nice thing with layers, I'm going to start out and work my way in. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, some of this depends on where you live. If you're the kind of person who thinks 70 is warm, you're going to want to bring heavier layers.
Yep.
Right? If you can deal with cold, maybe like for us, we would travel with a rain jacket as like an outer layer because Alaska, you never know when it's going to rain. Yep. And then maybe like a hoodie under that.
Yep.
Then maybe like a long sleeve t-shirt under that. Mm-hmm. Then maybe a short sleeve t-shirt under that.
Possibly.
Just the kind of thing that if it's one of those cold, rainy, windy, wet days, you can wear all of your layers and stay warm.
Yep. Or if it's warmer, you can shed layers and still be comfortable.
So I tend to be a big believer in layers. That's how we dress when we go out places in Alaska.
Yep.
So layers, layers, layers. Yeah. The other thing I would say is pay attention to the weather in the towns you're going to be visiting.
Yep.
So Alaska...
Because Alaska is very big.
Mm-hmm. So don't just check the weather in Anchorage.
Right.
Check the weather specifically. Because even, like, if you're going on a cruise, you might say, well, Ketchikan, Sitka, Juneau, Skagway. Yes, they're not that far away from each other. But the weather can be dramatically different in those locations.
Very, very different. They're not that far away from it, but they're far enough away that they have completely different weather systems.
And there's mountain ranges in between and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I would say for that one, absolutely layers.
Yeah.
Layers. Layers, layers, layers. Okay, good question here next.
I would also say if you are cruising to Alaska, even in July, you're going to probably still want some kind of hat and or gloves because most of the cruises do get up near glaciers, and it's cold. If you want to be outside so you can really see the glaciers, see the otters that are always out there, you're going to want to be able to bundle up a little bit.
When the ship is moving, the wind, a lot of times coming off glaciers, coming down mountains, it doesn't matter what the air temperature stopped is. It's chilly when it moves.
It's chilly, and I mean, we live here and we're used to the cold, and I'm still always freezing when I'm outside when the boat is moving.
Yep.
So
that's exactly right.
Yep.
So yeah, pack that for sure. Also, don't forget to pack your eye mask, because remember, summer in Alaska is like our land of the midnight sun.
It's going to be very bright.
You're going to want to sleep.
4 hours a day.
So bring an eye mask. Okay, The next question. Which ships can get closest to the glaciers? I know some are too big. Okay, so let's talk about this.
Yep.
And actually, this question was asked in a lot of different ways. A lot of you guys said, like, what's the best itinerary? What's the best, that kind of stuff. I'm going to kind of answer all of that along with this question.
Yeah.
For the most part, with the exception of, like, some smaller ships. Now, we have not been on... The ship that we're going on next week is the Seabourn Odyssey. And it is a smaller ship, 500 passengers.
Right.
But the other ships we've been on in Alaska have been bigger ships, 2,500, 4,000 passengers.
Right.
Either of those ships, we didn't really notice a difference on where they could go. Very curious to see how different this small ship is.
Right.
If we're able to get in different places that we aren't with the other ships.
Because it is so much smaller.
Yes.
However, I would say don't base your trip on the ship, base your trip on the itinerary.
Bingo, bango. So that's exactly what I was just going to say. If glaciers are your thing, and I want to touch on a couple of the other questions, because a lot of people were like, what's the best itinerary? That 100% depends.
Right.
Like, there's
what are you looking for?
Yeah, there's no way for us to answer that, because for some people, they want to see glaciers so badly. And so I would say, book a cruise that goes to Glacier Bay.
Yep.
Like, Glacier Bay is...
Not all cruise lines do.
Nope, not all cruise lines do. Not all cruise lines can even go to Glacier Bay. Right. It's one of those places that is just... even most Alaskans have never experienced it.
Yeah.
Because of how remote and untouched and kind of limited it is.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Book a cruise that goes to Glacier Bay. But when you're saying, like, what's the best itinerary, you really do need to sit down and say, what are the things that I'm hoping to get out of Alaska? What's the Alaska that I want to see?
Yeah.
Maybe for some it's glaciers. Maybe for some people, you might say, you know what I really want to see? I want to go flight scene and see Denali. Right? I want to see the bears down in Katmai. Well, then you're actually looking at probably adding like a land portion on at the end of your cruise.
Yep.
And so just sit down and say, what is the Alaska I want to see? And then book a cruise with an itinerary that matches what you want.
Yep.
With a cruise line that can get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question, because it's kind of hard to say which ship gets you closest. Yes, smaller ships do tend to get closer to glaciers.
But I will say, so we cruised on the Princess Royal, which is a big ship. And then we cruised on the Princess Grand, the Grand Princess, and it smaller, but still a pretty big cruise ship. And so I didn't notice distance-wise either one of those getting closer. Like, they both went into Glacier Bay and they do a 360 and come back out. So
both felt like similar experiences.
Both were very similar experiences. So I don't think that it really matters about the ship size.
Yeah, I agree. Now we may change our mind when we go on a small ship.
Right.
Right. We may say, actually, like, if you want glaciers, book a smaller cruise line like Seabourn.
Right.
But we'll let you know.
That's
coming up soon. And actually, this question is kind of very similar. I love this question. What's a non-negotiable thing that a first-time Alaska traveler should do or see? What's the non-negotiable for you?
Right. Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard for us to answer this, because for some people, that non-negotiable would be the Northern Lights. So then I'd say, well, you're probably not taking a cruise, because while you can see the Northern Lights in early season and late season cruises,
it's harder.
And so then you're probably looking at like a winter land tour to interior Alaska.
Yep.
And so, like, I would say, what's a non-negotiable for you?
Right.
Yeah, it's so hard to answer questions like that.
It is hard. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the reason I like cruising Alaska is because we can see these glaciers that you just can't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
Aside from on a ship.
Here's another one. Our first Alaska cruise is coming up in exactly 4 months. What's the number one thing we should do or see while there? Here, actually, you know what? I do want to say one thing I think you should do. If you are an experienced cruiser, one of the things that is different about cruising Alaska that I love, remember, we live here. When you cruise the Caribbean, a lot of times it is you're in port, you leave port, and then you get to another port. And it's like that whole journey is just kind of open ocean. There's not really anything to see.
Right.
In Alaska, you're almost always surrounded by mountains and the potential for whales or, you know what I mean, sea life or birds or just glaciers and beauty.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say is take time to just sit and be in it.
Yes.
Like just watch. Sit on a cruise ship as you just like cut through the water in silence with Alaska.
With Alaska, yeah. And whether that's booking a balcony room, they are more expensive. And I personally like the interior rooms because they get really dark. But book a balcony room or just make sure you are outside on the decks as much as you possibly can be because it's beautiful everywhere. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Next question. Must have souvenirs that are more support a craftsperson and less tchotchkes. Okay. I love this question.
That's what we try to do too.
That's what we try to do too.
Authentic kind of souvenirs.
So I have a few answers to this. The first answer, there's a little symbol that says made in Alaska. And that is an item that in order to have been made in Alaska, in order to have that sticker, that symbol on their packaging, it has to have been made in Alaska.
Right.
Which is a very good thing because there's a lot of stuff in gift shops around our state that is mass produced overseas that they slap the name Alaska on it and then they just like sell it.
Right.
Why? Why would you spend all the money to come to Alaska and then bring home something that is made overseas?
Correct.
So look for the made in Alaska thing.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I want to say. Look for stores that are open year round.
Yeah.
This is a big one, you guys.
This is a big one because chances are if they are only open May to October,
yep,
it's because they want your tourist money.
And they shut down and they leave. Now, they could be locally owned, but shut down through the winter. That's better, I guess. But for me, look for stores that are open year-round. Like, hey, are you guys open year-round? Because what that means is that they are actually supporting the communities that they're a part of.
Year-round.
It's one of the reasons, you guys, we beat this drum all the time. It's one of the reasons that we love Woodlands in Ketchikan.
Right.
Because, yes, it's owned by a family that lives in Ketchikan year-round. Yes, they make all of their designs at Ketchikan. They do all the printing at Ketchikan. But they're open year-round and employ locals in Ketchikan all year long.
Correct. Yep.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, they are supporting their community.
Yes, the other thing I'll say, can I do one more?
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate you so much. Is look for kind of independent Alaska Native artists.
Yeah.
If you're coming to Anchorage, the Alaska Native Heritage Center has some amazing Native artists on site.
Yep.
You can buy stuff from.
Yep.
If you are traveling somewhere, ask the question, was this made by an Alaska Native artist? Was this made by an Alaska Native artist? Ask that. Because I think that's...
Because that's where you're going to get the actual authentic pieces that aren't made overseas.
Yep. Ready for the next question?
Yeah.
It's a great one. Going to Sitka and Icy Strait Point for the first time this July. Anything we can't miss there? Well,
I haven't been yet.
I was just going to say, here's the thing. Sherri's going... So I've been to Sitka.
To be determined.
Yeah. I was going to say, oh, you want the answer to that question? Cool. Watch our upcoming cruise vlog series. Because we're going to both those places.
Right.
And we'll be able to tell you.
Yep.
For me, when I was in Sitka, the Totem Park, I thought was beautiful. I mean, Sitka is a gorgeous town.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited for you to see it.
Because for me, one of the most beautiful towns in Alaska is Homer. And you were saying Sitka is maybe even prettier than Homer, and I'm very excited.
I love that you said Homer. Homer. It's Homer, Alaska. That was the best. So
Homer.
Watch our vlog coming up for the answer to that. Another one, which Alaska cruise itinerary do you suggest? It's so hard for us because it depends on what you want to see.
Yeah.
We had several people ask, what's the best cruise line for Alaska? Let's talk about it. Okay, listen, and I want to address something real quick. You guys know, Sherri works for Holland American Princess.
I might be a little bit biased.
So you might be a little bit biased, but here's what I want to say. Before you worked for Holland America Princess, why did we choose Princess to be our very first cruise in Alaska?
Because they cruise Alaska the best.
Because
that's what everybody has always said. Before we ever set foot on a Princess ship, before I even knew, a year plus before I even knew I'd be working for them, Princess.
The reputation of Princess and Holland America in Alaska is not touched by any other cruise line.
Right.
It's just simply not.
And I think that we haven't cruised anything but Princess in Alaska. Soon to be Seabourn as well, which is also
part of it.
Us. But from friends that we know that have cruised other cruise lines, what they have said is that it felt like a ex-cruise line in Alaska. Whereas we have really felt like the Princess cruises that we've done were an Alaskan cruise on Princess. And so
they do Alaska well.
They do Alaska really well. And we've cruised Princess elsewhere too. And they really did Alaska well.
The way that they brought so much local seafood on, so many local, like even distilleries and local breweries. The way that they brought on
even the outfits for the crew, like they do Alaska well.
Yeah, they do Alaska. It feels like they really do bring Alaska onto the ship. We love that.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say is that they are a cruise line that is just so heavily invested in Alaska. They have lodges in Alaska. They have buses. They have rail cars. They do Alaska so well. Now, that being said, if you're a family with younger kids and you know that you love cruising Disney, cruise Disney.
Cruise Disney, right.
If you
pick the cruise line that you actually want to cruise.
If you love Celebrity, stay on Celebrity.
Right.
Like, Alaska...
It's not going to be a bad experience.
It's not going to be a bad experience. The only thing I will say, there are some cruise lines who are kind of notorious for having itineraries that give you a lot of stops in ports, but very, very short time.
I was going to talk about that when we were talking about itineraries, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
When you're looking at your itineraries, make sure you're noticing the times that you're in port.
It's not just how many ports you visit.
Right, because you might be visiting all of the ports, but you're there for very little time, so you can't actually get off and experience anything.
Yep, so pick itineraries that give you expanded times in ports.
Yep.
That's huge. So as far as what cruise line, I know it's easy to be like, of course, Sherri says Princess, they sign her paycheck. But here's the thing, before that was ever the case, go back and watch our videos. We were talking about Princess in Alaska years ago.
Yep.
And it still absolutely rings true.
It is, yep.
All right, next question. Will there still be snow on Denali in the middle of July?
There is always snow on Denali. The snow does not melt on Denali.
Yeah, Denali is one of those mountains that is just so gigantic, it never is cleared of snow. And so whenever you see Denali, it could be 80 degrees, 90 degrees, you're looking at a snow-covered mountain.
Yep. The mountains here in Anchorage do lose their snow.
Yep, a lot of mountains around the state lose the snow, totally get clear.
Denali does not.
Denali does not. So whenever you come to Alaska, no matter what the weather is like, if you can see Denali, there's going to be snow on it.
Yep.
Okay. We just answered that. Someone said, what's your honest opinion of which cruise line is best for cruising in Alaska? We answered that. Okay, I love this question. Getting from Seattle to Vancouver easily and for the lowest cost. Now, we actually have some advice on this because we have some experience with this.
We have some experience.
So there's some options to get from Seattle to Vancouver. Maybe you're flying to Seattle, your cruise is leaving out of Vancouver, or vice versa.
Right.
If you live in BC and you're going to cruise out of Seattle. You can fly, of course. Lots of airlines, Alaska Airlines, Air Canada, a lot of airlines do the Seattle to Vancouver flight. There are some different shuttle kind of services. Our favorite, there is Greyhound. There's like a bus, like Amtrak bus or a Greyhound bus. A couple different actually bus vendors that do that.
Yep, pretty cheap.
Pretty cheap. Our favorite is what?
The train.
Amtrak. I think it's called the Cascade something.
Now, we actually have not done it from Seattle
we've done it from
Vancouver. We've done it from Bellingham, Washington to Vancouver and loved it. So that's actually what we're doing next week.
Next week. I think it was $40 a person for Seattle to Vancouver.
I think it's 4 hours.
It is 4 hours. We leave at 6 p.m. We get there at 10 p.m. There is a morning train that was already sold out. And so it is really beautiful. I remember the train ride from Bellingham to Vancouver, and it was gorgeous.
Beautiful. Yep.
So
I'm very excited for this.
So yeah, in our opinion,
Plus I like trains.
4 hours to get to hang out, just relax, read books, go peruse the dining car, perhaps. We think the Amtrak Cascades is the way to go.
The cheapest is the bus.
I think the cheapest is the bus, for sure. Next question. Someone said, on a Princess cruise, how accessible are things on the ship and excursions for wheelchair users? This is tough for us.
It is a little bit tough for us. It is one of the things that I do try to kind of pay attention to, but neither one of us need really full accessibility. So it's unfortunately not something that I pay very close attention to.
Yeah, and I would say the thing I'd say to remember is that, like, because that's not our experience, our advice in that probably not horribly helpful. Here's what I would say. Every cruise line has Facebook groups.
Yep.
In fact, there are Facebook groups for Alaska Cruises 24-25 that cover all lines.
Right.
Join those Facebook groups and ask questions for people who have had specific experience with that.
Yep.
Whether that's with a wheelchair, whether that's with a service dog, whatever you're looking for, because if I say one thing, you have to remember that's actually not my experience. Maybe it's just something that I saw.
An observation. That's all we've got is observations, and so that's going to be a little harder for us to answer.
That's exactly right. Someone asked the question and said that if excursions in towns are already sold out, is there anything to do?
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Now, some of it does depend on what town you're in.
Yeah.
For us, we actually normally don't book excursions through cruise lines. When we get to Ketchikan, well, obviously we go to Woodlands, we go see our friends, but you can go walk. Our plan this time is to just go downtown, to walk Creek Street, go to a local bookstore that we love, stop in at the bookstore, just kind of walk around the downtown area, grab lunch, go in a couple shops, just kind of experience that. If you're in Juneau, our favorite thing to do is to rent a Turo or rent a car.
Yeah, and do our own thing. Right across from like the cruise docks, there is the tram.
The Mount Roberts tram.
Yep, that can go up Mount Roberts, and that's beautiful.
And if you do the tram up, and you are in the kind of shape that would want to do this, there are some great hiking trails at the top of the tram.
Yeah.
That give you some beautiful views.
Even if you're not really in great shape.
You still did it.
I'm not in great shape, but I still did it, and it was pretty easy.
Yep. For us,
nice walking trails.
When we rent a Turo, we love to go to the Shrine of St. Therese.
Yep.
We love to go to Mendenhall.
It's actually out in Ock Bay.
Yep, it's past there.
Yep.
Yeah. We love going to Mendenhall Glacier and then taking time to walk out to Nugget Falls. When you have your own car, you have plenty of time to do that.
Yep.
There's just a lot of things when you have your own transportation. And to be honest, we have always found renting a car much cheaper than booking the excursions through cruise lines.
Yeah, and then you get to kind of do things on your own time.
Yeah, so I would say in every town, at least that we have gone to, if you don't book an excursion, if they're sold out, get off the ship and start walking.
Start walking, yeah. Honestly, most cruise towns, cruise ports, are situated so that you can just walk off the ship and there's things there. There's things for you to walk to and do. And so it's I think even if you don't rent a car, there's plenty to do in Juneau on foot. There's plenty to do in Ketchikan on foot. There's plenty to do in Skagway on foot. Yep.
We had a question that it's just so honest. It just says overwhelmed. Where to even start? Okay.
I'm going to let you answer this.
We're going to breathe. Because I do all of our planning.
You do all of the planning. You just tell me where to be when.
It's actually really funny because even though you work for Holland America Princess, I think I actually know more about like all of your Alaska operations than you do.
Well, it is funny. Like people will ask me like, how do I book a cruise? And I'm like, you're going to have to ask Adam because I've literally never booked a cruise in my life.
I handle all of it. Here's what I would say. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I would just say, I'd remind you that Alaska is so big, you can't do it all. in one trip. And so take the, oh my God, what if I miss something though mentality, and we're going to set that aside because you will miss something.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to plan a trip where you don't miss something because that's not possible. I would say, what do I want my first bite of Alaska to be? I think the most people, it's a cruise. Because you get to see part of Southeast Alaska. It's beautiful. You get to see lots of little towns that are very difficult and expensive to visit otherwise.
Yep.
And so cruise is a great first option.
Yep.
But then you have the majority of Alaska. Most people don't even get to touch.
Keeping in mind that cruises go right here.
That's it.
It's just right there. But
Yeah.
there's all of this too.
Yeah, and so so I would say maybe what you really care about, kind of what we were talking about earlier, is Denali. Maybe you care about the Northern Lights. Maybe you really want to go dog mushing. Maybe you really want to go, you know what I mean? Like, what is it that you want to do? And so sit down and say, okay, I know I can't do it all, but here's the things I'd love to start with.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a list of whatever those are, and then you can say, actually, it might not make sense to do a cruise. Maybe a land tour is what we should do.
Yep.
Maybe an RV tour of Alaska, what you should do.
Right.
You know, fly to Anchorage, rent a car, and then just be an independent traveler.
Yeah.
Go to Denali. I mean, there's so much to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I think people do feel overwhelmed is that, oh my God, it's so big, there's so much, it's so spread out. How do I do this? You don't do it in one.
You don't do it in one. He's lived here for 40 plus years and has seen as much of the state. And, and tried to see as much as he could.
Yeah, and I've seen way more of our state than the most people.
Right.
But there's still so much that I haven't experienced.
So much that, I mean, it's too big to see all of it.
Too big to see all of it.
Yeah.
So just set the pressure aside of trying to do it all and tackle it in multiple trips. But ask the question, what do you want to be first?
Yeah.
What do you want to be first?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm trying itinerary advice. We answered that. Have you ever been to the Gold Creek Salmon Bake in Juneau? We have not.
We have not.
I have heard of it. I'll be very honest.
I don't like salmon.
Sherri doesn't like salmon, and growing up in Alaska, I am a salmon snob. Like, I would never consider ordering salmon. It's always funny when we're traveling out of Alaska, and they're like, our special tonight's salmon. I'm like, like, I am not eating your
How
farm.
many times has that been frozen and thawed?
Yeah, I am not eating your farm-raised Atlantic salmon. Absolutely, get out of here with that. Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Someone said, do you know Wild Alaska Art in Anchorage? His name is Dan. I don't know him.
No.
No clue. There you go. Must have, oh, we already answered that one. Dream Alaskan cruise itinerary.
For us, like our dream?
Yeah. I think it has to include Glacier Bay.
Yeah. I think I would like to do, we've only ever done 7-night cruises from Vancouver to Whittier or to Juneau, where this one's going. I think I would like to either do a round trip or, which is the 14-day because it's literally there
Down
and back. Or one of the 10 days that kind of goes out into different places.
I agree. So we didn't really answer your question as far as the actual towns.
The actual towns, but I would like to see. What I'm excited about for this cruise coming up is that it's taking us different places that we haven't been before.
Yep.
So we're hitting some of the places we have been, but we're also going to a bunch of new places.
Yep.
So
I'm so excited. My God, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You guys, I think that there are so many more here, but I think that this, I'm just scrolling. I know, it's like, look at all of them.
Lot.
There's a lot. What's your favorite place to visit? Do you have a favorite place we visited on a cruise?
I mean,
Go ahead.
it's hard not to say Ketchikan because we have our friends there and their store is always amazing. I
have one.
You do?
My favorite cruise day is Juneau, renting a car, because there's so much you can do. If you like museums, go to the State of Alaska Museum. The Alaska State Museum in downtown Juneau does a great job telling the history of our state.
Yeah.
I love the Shrine of St. Teresa. It is one of the most peaceful places in Alaska.
Yeah.
Mendenhall
Glacier is beautiful.
Mendenhall Glacier is beautiful. I love being able to drive out to Heritage Coffee. I love, there's so much to do when you have a car in Juneau.
Yeah.
I just think that's such a great day.
Yeah.
Taking the tram to the top of the mountain.
I don't like heights and I went like this the entire time, but once you get up there, it's beautiful.
You guys, Sherri was terrified.
I sat down and I went like this.
The entire time.
All the way up, but all the way down.
Someone did ask us a question. This was kind of one of the things like you were talking about. Alaska cruises, which is your favorite, northbound, southbound, or land and sea?
We've only ever done
northbound,
but we have done some of the princess lodges that are around the state, which are included in the land portion of a princess land and sea. Even before I worked there, we stayed at some of the lodges. But now that I do work for them, we've tried to stay at more. The lodges are beautiful. They're always in really beautiful locations. And so we've done the land portion, I guess. I don't know how to, without doing a land portion.
Land and sea, hands down.
That's your...
Yeah, it's not even close because
there's so much more to see.
There is so much more of Alaska. Cruising Alaska is beautiful, but please, 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 if you have come to Alaska on multiple cruises, but you have never explored the rest of our state, like, would you consider adding either a land portion on to the end of your next cruise,
or just doing a land
tour? Because there is so much more of Alaska experience. And what I think you will find is that Southeast is gorgeous, but the rest of the state is beautiful in completely different ways.
Yeah.
And so take the time to see the rest of the state. It's like, if you can do add a land portion on to the beginning or end of your cruise, whether it's through Princess or as an independent traveler, I would absolutely say do it.
Yeah.
If you come to Anchorage, go to the Alaska Native Heritage Center, go to the Anchorage Museum. If you're in Fairbanks, go up to Chena Hot Springs.
Yeah.
Go to the Santa Claus house in North Pole, Alaska.
Just drive around North Pole because it's the cutest little town.
Just like get out and see things. Go to Denali and take the bus into the park.
Yeah.
Go to Talkeetna and just like sit at Denali Brewing and have a beer and like talk to the locals.
Yeah.
Alaska is such a great place.
Yeah.
And Southeast Alaska is a great part of the state, but it is just a part of the state.
Right.
And so that, to me, and I think this is where we'll end the vlog, because I think this is, like, I think that this is really important, that people understand there's so much more than just cruising in our state.
Cruising in our state is beautiful. The most beautiful cruising of anywhere else we've been, but
For sure.
there is a whole lot more of our state that is equally beautiful, and you just can't see it on a cruise ship.
And I think that that's one of the things, you know, we had somebody message us last year, and they're like, hey, we're not really cruise people, but we really want to see Alaska. Like, do you think it's worth it coming to Alaska not on a cruise? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Book the ticket, because here's the thing. Even if you say, I'm not really a cruise person, but man, I'd still love to see glaciers and whales. Out of Seward, take a Kenai Fjords tours, go out with major marine tours.
Yeah.
You actually will get closer to the glaciers than you would on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
You can see whales, you can see orcas, you can see humpbacks, you can see grays when they are like migrating through Alaska. You can still experience like the beauty of the ocean and the ocean wildlife in Alaska, not on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go. You guys know we love this state.
Yeah.
Am I annoying when I talk about Alaska?
No, I mean, no, it's, you're passionate.
I'm passionate about
And
Alaska.
there's a lot to love. And so, yeah. It's no secret that we love Alaska.
God, I hope it's not.
If you've seen any of our videos.
Any of our videos.
Maybe not some in like February when we're just like, we're done with the snow.
Yeah. Where is the sunshine?
Don't watch any of those. But
yeah.
the rest of the year.
It's
we love
amazing. And so we tried to get through a bunch of your questions. There were a bunch more that we weren't able to get through. I will say, even if you've watched our past Alaska cruise series, the cruise series that we have coming up here on our channel, because we're going to new places, it is a much smaller ship. It is a very different experience than anything we've had. I think this will be a new way to experience Alaska for us.
Yeah.
We have a balcony suite for the first time. We had a balcony on our very first Princess cruise, but it was like a forward-facing balcony, which was huge.
It was huge, which was great because we went with some of our best friends, so like we just hung out on our balcony, all four of us, with plenty of space.
But it also was kind of difficult because it was always windy, and so hard to just like sit out there when the ship was moving.
Yeah.
So, boom.
Excited.
Hope we answered some of your Alaska questions. Again, we do have an Anchorage specific video that will come up eventually, maybe this year, maybe next year.
We'll see.
Who knows? But I do hope you guys know that you are always free to DM us on Instagram, send us an email, legglife@gmail.com. If you have questions about Alaska itineraries, about Alaska cruises, if you have questions about any of your Alaska travel stuff, send us a message. We try to get back to you if possible. We do miss some of them.
Yeah.
But we're always here to help.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sorry that I basically dominated that conversation.
You know a lot more about the state than I do. So...
You know more about bookstores than I do, though.
I
the bookstores
sure
in
do.
Alaska.
If you have questions about where the bookstores are in Alaska, I can answer you.
That is true. Because it's one of the things, every town we go to, we find the bookstore.
We find the bookstore.
And we found some good ones.
Yeah.
Friends, we love you so very much. We will see you on the next LeggLife video.